right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Give me 1 minute to get situated here. All right. Just wanted to go ahead and post the live stream link on my X account. All right, and there we are. And we're live, baby. So yeah, thank you for joining today. I wanted to go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and maybe a few other altcoins too as well. So we'll see who jumps in here in this stream. And we'll see what kind of request comes my way. So, just to start off here, let's go ahead to a higher time frame. So Bitcoin is looking kind of bearish, isn't it? Just broke out of the range lows, as you can see. It's still currently trading below the lows. And the reason being is because of the CME gap, which everyone has had their eyes on, right? So it came down and it's finally filled the gap. So I actually marked this line right here. I could go ahead and get rid of this box, actually. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So this line right here was basically the top of the CME gap, right? So if I go ahead and I zoom all the way in, you'll see the gap basically starts right here. So that's where I marked out, because the gaps are pretty much like a magnet, right? So whenever price gaps up due to weekend price action, it tends to always try to find it before continuing lower, right? So you can even see there's a gap right here that formed on the 15-minute, right? So you would think price wasn't going to go ahead and close this gap here, but as you can see, that gap was closed on this impulse higher. It was actually closed. Yeah, this impulse is what closed it. Gap here happened, then look what happened. Price came down, filled the gap, and then continue moving higher. And this basically just happens every time the weekend comes around. Price action happens, and then the CME usually fills the gap before continuing price action, right? As you can see, another gap here, and then look what happened to basically the dollar, right? So if we go ahead and put down a horizontal array right there, you can see the gap gets filled, and then price continues to move down. And where does it move down to, right? So it moves down and fills that one gap, which I had marked out, right? This blue line. So it comes down, and look at how exact it fills this gap. So it comes down and touches it right there, pretty much near to the dollar. And now price just seems to be reacting off that low, which it is also a very important low. As you can see, there is a ascending trend line here too as well. So if we go ahead and go out to the daily level, you see where this trend line starts. So it starts all the way back here, right? So pull from here. I believe I was on the 4-hour. That's where I got the pivot low. Yeah, so 4-hour pivot low touched right here. That is a confluence, if you ask me. And now price seems to want to move higher. So along here, it just seems like the smartest decision. Price came up, filled this gap, moved down, filled this gap down here, and more than likely, I feel like we're going to get a decent move to the upside here. Okay. Now, if that low does break, there's a lot of liquidity that has been built up with these higher lows. So if that was to happen, then yeah, I would expect to see price fail this back test before getting a little squeeze, right? Long squeeze down to these lows, possibly tapping this area right here before possibly range bounding and then figuring out what it wants to do, if it wants to go up here or move down lower, right? Because this was clearly a very, very important range before price action broke out to the upside and continued higher, just higher highs, higher lows, all the way up until we hit basically the almost 50,000 mark, right? So price action is more favorable now, in my opinion, just to move a little bit higher since this gap has been filled. There's a little bit of a confluence level here. So if we were to go ahead and pull some fibs from the high to this low, just a small one, you know, nothing too crazy. Might get a reaction there. Let's go ahead and pull it from a little bit higher. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the 0.5 and the 382 just to see where we can get some reactions. And then we also have up here too as well. Look at that, the 382 lines up right with that gap, right? So pretty important level right around here at these highs. Let's just check some of these daily levels too as well. So that's a daily level. And as you can see, we do have a daily right here too as well. Now this is a little bit higher, so I guess you could put it there. And then we could go ahead and mark that as a daily level, which lines up right with the 382, which is quite interesting. So right now, I do believe we are going to see some sort of reaction. The rest of the market is also reacting off this level too as well. A lot of altcoins have had a very nice bullish push to the upside. You know, about 2%, 3% move after this initial bounce from Bitcoin. So I do expect price to go a little bit higher. If you want to, you can go ahead and draw a trend line down just so you can see what next little level needs to get hit before, or reached, right, or broken through before price continues to move to the upside. So this was a pretty important level too as well. Price came down, attempted to touch it, pretty much reacted off the zone, came down, tapped the level again, tapped it again, broke through, and it was resistance. So with that being said, I would actually expect price to come up, try to flip this into support. Also, we need to break through this little trend line, flip that into support as well before going up, tapping this daily level. Might get a little reaction, come back down. If we get initial push up, the bulls come back in, go ahead and attack higher levels, right? So we'll see how that all plays out. But to be honest, there's not too much to really analyze with Bitcoin besides that. There are some levels to the downside to keep aware of, which I do have marked out, right? So you have, this is really the key level here. I think if price fails this level, I believe it's going to go through all of these lows pretty quickly, and this is where it will try to find support. So 31,745 is a very important level. Let's see if there's any weekly levels that line up with that level down there. So no weeklies. Let's go ahead and take a look at the monthly levels. I don't believe there's any monthly levels either. This used to be one, right? But price obviously broke through that quite easily. Let's go ahead and look at some other charts here. So this is the Bybit chart, the main one, which I do look at. We do have a point of control at around 34.5, which is another key level. Let's see here. So we have some fib levels also pulled, which obviously came in as support. Did it act much of resistance? It did act as resistance, nothing too crazy, but you know, it's another key level. So this is a very important level too. There's a daily level here at 37.7, right above the value area high of this little upward consolidation range. So this would be the next key level to really keep an eye on. If price does not manage to reclaim these lows, reclaim the value area high. If price reclaims this level right here, then we will be looking extremely bullish. But a drop down to the downside doesn't seem improbable. Seems like something that can more than likely happen. Price action is looking overall kind of bearish right now, right? Because we did get a nice impulse up. We had a solid rejection from the point of control, range high, golden pocket, you know, very high confluence level here. And this was the range low. So at this moment, we are forming a lower low, right? It could be called a swing failure pattern too as well. But to be honest, I believe this is a lower low coming in, which means that we might have to also keep an eye out for the possibility of a higher low coming in, right? So if price action starts to get rejected around the point of control and weekly, that would be a lower high before then continuing lower, possibly forming a lower low here, and just repeating the same thing over and over again before it finds some sort of support, right? And if price action does happen that way, obviously it might start lining up with some golden pockets, as you can see there, and daily, which would be a pretty interesting area to also short, because then that's also lining up with possibly the value area low of this range, right? So we'll just see. That's how you kind of try to plan ahead to see how things can happen. You don't want to pull fibs too early, but sometimes pulling fibs early is a good way of predicting where you would like price to react. So this way, when price does hit those levels, you simply just enter the trade, take it, and set your risk, 1% risk on the trade, and you just let it do its thing, right? So let's see here. So you always tend to look at the CME. It's pretty important. Bybit's also very important too as well. But we are getting a nice reaction from these lows here. It almost hit this trend line and gap fill area perfectly. Look at that. So seeing a nice reaction up is not surprising to me. How high will it go? I'm not sure, but in my opinion, it more than likely will at least test this trend line here. But the first challenge is this little swing failure pattern here. Still is resistance at the end of the day. All right, that is still resistance at the end of the day. We need to claim this as support before we can continue to move a little bit higher. So we're gonna watch that level. And then let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. All right, let's start at the higher time frame here. As you can see, a little expanding wedge pattern. Clearly tapped a very, very important level, major point of control, golden pocket, and almost the top of that trend line there, right? So very important level there. On this, as it comes for the weekly, I'm gonna go ahead and move this up. Not right there, hold on. Where is the weekly? Yes, I want to go ahead and move this one up here, because that is now an untapped weekly, which lines up pretty close to the point of control, right? This was an old point of control. I believe if we actually, where did I get this point of control from? Hold on a second. So it's there for a reason. Okay, so more than likely it's because when I went to pull this fib here, that's more than likely where I'm getting that from. Right, yep. So point of control of this little range before the breakout. And that's what we got here. So it's now within the value area high, below this golden pocket, which was pulled from the high to the low. So just as it can be used as support, that means it can also be used as resistance. And let's go ahead and move this up. You know what, 1 second here. I would rather have this not extend all the way up here, because this is a different range up there, right? So let's go ahead and leave it there. As you can see, everything does go ahead and line up correctly. So it is bouncing off the value area high here, rejecting off the golden pocket. I'm gonna go ahead and let's just see where 786 is. It might be bond. No, it didn't touch that yet. Okay. So we could delete this, because at the end of the day, this is still resistance here, right? That's exactly where it is finding a little bit of trouble moving above, is that key level. Now, Bitcoin does continue to remain a little bit bullish. I can clearly see this level just getting flipped before continuing to the upside. Also, let me go ahead and do something here. Okay, so Ethereum right on that very key level here. At this moment, as you can see, this is where price does react. It failed every single time it went above the value area high, but this is still clearly a support, right? You can't forget that this is support. And until price really breaks down and back tests this, then that becomes resistance, right? So that is a solid support level. We want to see something like this happen on ETH. Flip this level into support before price continuing higher. If not, a nicer area to enter along for Ethereum would be for it to come down here. There's a lot of confluence right here, right? The point of control, trend line, weekly level too as well, all right here. And this is where I think a very nice reaction can happen. Great place to enter along and then continue higher. Plus it's, higher percent trade at the end of the day, 16% compared to 9%, which is still a very good gain at the end of the day. So right now, this is just the key levels I'm keeping an eye on with ETH. Trend lines tested and respected. Let's go ahead and pull from the absolute lows to the high. And look at that. Look exactly where that lined up. This is extremely bullish now, in my opinion. Now you're talking about value area high, horizontal support resistance, and golden pocket all lining up pretty much exactly, right? It's a beautiful level there. So I do expect to see a nice little impulse from these levels. Now what I don't like is there's a lot of selling volume, right? So much selling volume, increase in selling volume all the way down to support. Now there's a decrease in selling volume. You see it's just a decrease in volume still. So even though it's turned green, the volume is still decreasing as we're getting this bounce, which isn't really the best outlook. It means price can probably continue to move a little bit lower. Decrease in volume is never really a good sign. As you can see, look here, so price went up, and on this candle here, this candle closed, there's a major decrease in volume. Price continued, more decrease in volume, and it just continued lower and lower and lower. And then here it's the same thing, right? You have just a decrease in volume, decrease in volume. Price is bouncing, getting a reaction, but the volume is still just getting lower and lower, which makes me it tends to believe that makes me believe that we might just get something like that. We might actually get that. Price might just continue a little bit lower, touch the 2200 area, which is absolutely key. If that level breaks, then Ethereum is, in my opinion, going pretty low. It's going to go back and more than likely try to touch that trend line there, which I do also have drawn out, right? I'm not sure. And then you're talking possibly from where it's at now, another 25% drop, which would bring you pretty close to the point of control. We don't really want to see that happen, but it is very possible, right? Anything is possible. As you can see, major confluence level here. You have the value area low, daily level, and horizontal support coming off of right there. Another very important level there for Ethereum to keep an eye on. But right now, I do think it is a very interesting area to long. Let's see if you zoom in. If you were to long here, even though we already got the bounce, let's just see how far down you would have to keep your stop. Still only about 2%, so that's not a bad trade to take. There's nowhere else to really keep your stop losses unless you bring it all the way down here, but that's way too low, right? You're talking 5%. It's too low unless you're going to manage your position size. I think it's best to just you know, if you want to enter that long trade, then you can go ahead and do so with using the right risk management, and not financial advice, obviously, but it would be an interesting trade to take, just seeing the confluence happening at that level. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at Solana, because Solana has a lot of hype behind it, as always. Let's go ahead and analyze this really quick. All right, so I did draw this parallel channel. Price seems to have closed back within the channel. And I chose this channel range because, as you can see, massive sell-off. Price came up, kind of back, tested this area. Or really a back test, just tested these highs. Came down, tested this low one more time, which, you know, before getting a nice reaction, that's basically another range happening, right? So once you test the level twice, that's pretty much a trend in the horizontal direction. Might as well go ahead and pull your channels. And if you did that right away, you would have been able to pretty much guess the height of this this pivot high coming in. And then, you know, it comes back down to the lows, very close. So pretty much taps where the candle close happens there on the 4-hour, which is very interesting, right? So if you were to go ahead and hit that right there on the candle close, then you can mark it the hourly level. You would see it tapped it once, tapped it twice, and each time it actually tapped it, you had a very nice reaction to the upside. You're talking 18%. If you held it all the way up here as a perfect trade, you're talking 19%. Then from this level here, once again, just to the highs of the move, 9% move. And then if you want to sell it here at the touch of the triangle, you still were up 7%. So right now we are reclaiming the swing failure. Well, I guess it is pretty much a swing failure level, right? So you are reclaiming the bottom of this channel. In my opinion, it is a swing failure, right? Price has managed to close above on the 4-hour, pretty bullish. Now, next thing what people would like to see is obviously a breakout of this trend line. And once that happens, first thing you'd want to do is then target the top of this channel, right? So how would this more than likely play out? I don't think it would go up and then go down and touch this level. Like, it's just, I don't really think that's going to happen. What can happen, because there is more confluence below, is it can come down, touch the 786, touch the golden pocket before then breaking out of this descending trend line. Hopefully reclaiming this channel as support. And then if so, then you can actually expect a solid little move up. This is a 25% channel. That's a very big channel, right? And it's not like it's something that's unlikely, because it's done it multiple times in the past, right? 27% move there. Did it again here. Well, pretty close to it, 25%. And if you happen to short from those highs, you're talking, it's going to be a little bit less, but, you know, still 20%. So how I would expect this price action to go is two ways, right? So you can either expect a little grind up, breakout, retest, nice area to long on the retest, and then a move up higher, struggle a little bit before coming up, hopefully taking these highs right here. And then you can either enter a short trade, depending on how the market condition looks, or you just take it up to this monthly level up here, which is another very important level, possibly sweeping these highs, right? And then taking that trade back down. Or you can get a little extra move to the downside, tapping the golden pocket, 786, maybe reclaiming this level, and just doing the same thing, right? So a couple different setups here for Solana. A lot of important levels below to keep an eye on. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave this up here for now. I mean, it looks a little bit, no, I'll just take it off actually. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'd be expecting with Solana for now. This is a descending trend. You know, the triangle is just getting tighter and tighter. Eventually, it's going to want to break out. Sometimes with these projects too as well. But just in altcoins or crypto in general, you might break out, but then, you know, you get the back test, and then it still ranges a little bit before start moving higher. So if it does do something like that, you still want to go ahead and take a long position at key levels, not at resistance. You know, if it flips it, then yeah, you can do that. Stop loss below the lows. That could still be a very solid trade, right? So something like this, 8%. It's pretty wide. I wouldn't really like that wide. You know, it's a little too wide. But it is possible. Obviously, if you manage your position size correctly, then it's not going to be too bad. But preferably a setup like this would be nice, or a setup like this, then you long here and you place your stops. You can still do 1% away, 2% away. What would be more ideal, to be honest, is if price does go down, comes up, back tests this level, comes down, sweeps these lows one more time before then continuing a little bit higher, right? Just grab a little extra liquidity right there before continuing higher. You could also use this as an entry trigger because this is already a low, right? So if that's already a low, then that would be an even better entry trigger, because then you just want price to come down, sweep these lows, tap the golden pocket, tap the 786, reclaim here as a swing failure pattern, enter there, and then this setup would be a lot better, because then now you're talking reducing your risk even more. It's right, 4%, targeting the top of the channel, 31% away, or the monthly above, which is almost 50% away. That's massive gains. It's huge gains. Whatever portfolio you have, if you increase it by 50%, I'm pretty sure everyone would be a very happy camper, right? So let's go ahead and see what else we have here. So I think that's pretty much it with Solana. I'm sure you can draw some parallel channels too as well. Let's just see what's going on here. Sometimes, let's just see. Yeah. I think it's just doing a swing failure pattern now. Like I said, that would be an interesting scenario if it does come down one more time to backtest this low or retest this low, tapping the golden pocket 786 before reclaiming it and continuing higher, right? So that would be the better setup right there. And then with a long right there. Let's see, what else could we go ahead and chart? I think I did enter a, let's see here. Yes, I am currently long on Phantom from the lows here. Have not been stopped out yet. Yeah, Phantom is very interesting. You do have this anchored VWAP coming in right above. It's pretty bearish. I would really love to see this trend line break out. That'll put a little bit more confidence in the long position. But Phantom's pretty straightforward on the value area low. Key level right here, swing failure. It did do it once, got a nice reaction. Can go ahead and move it down to here too as well. So we do need to reclaim this little level first. You know, sometimes it's good to zoom in. So it would be nice to reclaim this level here. You have the little anchored VWAP right above, which is obviously another resistance. So if we get a move up, probably get rejected, may come back down. But once we break this trend line here, massive trend line, right, that has been going on for quite some time. Now 28 days. Oops. Has been going on for 28 days. If this breaks out, I would expect a nice reaction up into the daily, weekly, and point of control. This is massive confluence as well. If we do flip this level, then this is going to be very strong support. And that's where I would be expecting price to then impulse higher. All right. Let's go ahead and see if there's anything else we could go ahead and take a look at. Anything that had a very bullish move. I see everything's tapping out at 2%. There's a 4% move here on LDO, 10% on Kava. That is a coin I do like to trade. It seems to just have very solid price action from time to time. So that was a very strong impulse to go right back into the value area low, right? So yeah, this is let me go ahead and draw a parallel channel here. Yeah, this looks more like it. As you can see, price rejects off this, the 50% mark in the middle of the channel quite often. Just keeps respecting it. Support, resistance, support, resistance. So this is a pretty important level to keep an eye on. It looks better down here. But then the 50 doesn't really line up too well, so I think here is a little bit better. Let's go ahead and look at something here. No, you know what? Because you really want to go off the initial high, right? You want to think of it almost like price action did not start yet. So if price action did not start yet, this would be the top of the range, right? Because you would see price came down, caused a pivot low. Went up. This was the first high before he got rejected, formed a higher low. And then that is exactly where your high came in. Price does react off these levels too as well. Not as clean, but it does react off there. And then the center seems to react the best. But to be honest, you can just remove this for now. I don't really like it too well, to be honest. I really don't like that. But Kava is having some very interesting price action, especially after reclaiming the value area low, right? So just reclaim the value area low. Very strong impulse. If it manages to keep this level up here, right? Let's go ahead and just save this level. All right, go ahead and put that there. We'll put this here. All right. So if price does manage to stay above this level here, which is now also right above the VWAP, right? So this is now pretty strong support. You have the VWAP and value area low, which you just reclaimed. This is a daily level. It was previously tapped, but it's still a pretty relevant level. As you can see, resistance, resistance, resistance. Tried to flip it as support, failed. Now it's back on the value area low. If price does hold this level, I would not be surprised if we see a continuation to the upside. And this would actually be a pretty interesting area to enter a long position, right? Keep your stops below these lows right here. 2.7% away, not bad. Targeting the daily and point of control above, roughly around 10% away. And if price continues a little bit higher, the value area high or monthly would be the next target, which is about 18% away. All right, first target 8 cents, second target 80 cents, second target 87 cents. Very strong move. You could even go ahead and draw a few trend lines right here, right? If price falls below that trend line, might be a good time to get out, because then it will most likely fail the value area low and anchored VWAP, not anchored VWAP, just a VWAP. All right, so they're all lining up. So we can see if price is going to just impulse higher after it starts to line up with this level. So that would be very interesting to watch over the next few minutes here. Now, if price was to go ahead and reclaim this level as well, that would also be a very interesting area to enter a long, right? Because as you can see, this is clearly resistance. So we need to flip this level next for continuation to the upside. Then you could then target point of control and daily above, which has not been tested. So I do want to just watch this here for a little bit. Let's see how price reacts. We could go ahead and split the screens as well, right? So let's see if that plays out with Kava. In the meanwhile, let's see what else we can find to chart, right? So what is another project here everyone loves? I believe, let's see what other trades I'm in actually. Let me go ahead and see really quick. I am in Aptos from 8.143. Let's go ahead and take a look at Aptos here. I did enter an Aptos long, 8.143, so I did enter it right off the VWAP, up a little bit right now. I did like the way how Aptos looked, because if you go ahead and look at this, the amount of confluence you're having on Aptos is pretty unreal. So you have the anchored VWAP, the trend line, the 786. I believe this was the 886 from this level. Yep, the 886. Just tons and tons and tons of confluence at this level. Made it very hard for me not to take the trade. And at the time, I did map out that this was a swing failure. So you're talking swing failure, anchored VWAP, trendline retest, 886 retest, 786 zone, support zone, There's 5 different confluences at this level. It made it very hard for me not to take the trade. And now we're getting a decent reaction. I placed the stop loss below these lows here, targeting the weekly level above, which is also a 786. And it's also, I believe, another fib, like a 382 fib or a 0.5 fib. So with this trade, going for about 12.3%. And right now it is working out. Currently up a little bit. And there is the reaction from Kava that we've been anticipating. So obviously on a shorter time frame, that is also resistance as well. So this is just like, if you just have some fun, you're just like watching it, charting, you could just draw these extra trend lines. Some people might say it's unnecessary, but to me, it's just something else to keep an eye on. It gives a little bit more excitement when watching the charts, because you know that if Kava breaks this trend line, you're also more than likely going to get a bullish reaction, right? So with that, it looks a little bit more sloppy, but go ahead and draw it like that. And you can see it just keeps on retesting. This is, I think, very soon this is going to break out. It either has to break up or break down to the downside. I'm not in this trade, but it would be a very interesting trade to watch and a very interesting area to enter a trade to as well, right? What just happened? 1 second here. Stop loss below these lows, 2.7% away, and you target the highs. Three to 1 risk reward, not too bad. Risk 2.59% to gain 10. Not too bad there. So still want to watch this one for a little bit. I'm just going to leave this chart up. Aptos is also looking very interesting. I can't say it looks healthy, it just looks interesting. All right. But what's most important, like always, is just to see what Bitcoin is up to. You're not really sure what does that. Not sure why this just hangs out here. It's very annoying. It's been happening lately. Guess that's the only way to get rid of it. Double click the screen. But yeah, there's 2 levels, 2 charts that we can keep an eye on. Watch it for a few minutes here. Bitcoin obviously is just the king of crypto, so however this moves, everything else will move. And then look at that. There is the breakout as anticipated. Now it's next. Let's just see what happens here. I'm really curious to see if this will play out. Looks like it will so far. So let's see. And then it manages to close above. The bears are trying to push it down a little bit. Same thing here, right? Bitcoin's currently at resistance. So we need that little push from Bitcoin. We need that little push from Bitcoin. If it does manage to give us that push, then I would definitely expect to see this flip this level and continue to target the daily above. And there's a little rejection. Remember, this is pretty much resistance as well. So you have the trend line, but you also have this major resistance. Did do a little breakout, but let's go ahead and remove that because this is way more relevant. You know, horizontals are way more relevant than I think any other support or resistance. The VWAP is very relevant too as well. But horizontals always hold the most power. So we're waiting for this to happen here. I just don't like that Bitcoin is at resistance. If Bitcoin dumps back down to this level, then I would not be surprised to see price come down. Possibly try to sweep these lows before reclaiming and then, you know, doing it all over again. Right? Let's see which one plays out here. Obviously, I won't be watching this for the entire time. But it is interesting to watch sometimes. Okay. So as you can see, with Bitcoin on the hourly, this is the range low, so it really needs to close above this range low, because if so, then more than likely it's going to then go and try to reach the value area low and this daily level right here, which means Bitcoin can possibly pump from this level about 2%, which on most altcoins will end up being around 5 to 10%. So this is a very, very important level for Bitcoin for it to reclaim. And I'm just going to leave that here. And as you can see on the daily levels here, the point of control is now lining up with that range. So it's an even more difficult level to break above. But price has been grinding to the upside, higher highs, higher highs, higher lows into resistance, which is more bullish. So I would expect this to flip within the next hour or two. And with that being said, Kava is now impulsing a little bit higher. So keep an eye on those. We will see how this all plays out. But thanks to whoever joined the live stream, really appreciate it. Next time, leave a comment. Leave a comment in there so I can see exactly what coins you want me to chart. Don't be shy. There's really not that many people in here, so whatever you pick, I will chart. All right. Thank you for joining, and take care until next time. Once again, I try to do this once a day, once a night. It's a little bit late right now. I'll try to do it a little bit earlier next time, maybe around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Thank you for joining. Take care.